Good evening and welcome to tonight's Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for April the 10th, 2024. Can you call the roll, please, Joanne?
Jeff Cook,
Here.
Kelly Cruz Nicholson, Saywood Salazar, Ann Snyder. Here. Rob Tidrow.
Here. We do have a quorum tonight, and just for everybody's notice, anything that passes has to be a unanimous pass. So if we get to that, Kim can explain. If we get to where it's a mixed vote, Kim can explain the rules for that if we get there. If everybody will stand, remove your hats, and say the pledge with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In our packets, we have meeting minutes from last month's meeting on 3/13. There's no corrections or changes that need to be made. I'll entertain a motion.
I put forth a motion that we approve the minutes as stated.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the meetings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a proof of publication.
Yes, thank you. This notice was published in advance. It states the time, date, place, and the items on the agenda for tonight's hearings. This notice is in order to hold the public hearing, and I would ask the board to make a motion to accept the proof of publication.
I'll make that motion to accept proof of publication.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. New business tonight. We have BZA 10, the petition of Scott Lewis, requesting a variance of development standards. Is Mr. Lewis here? If you would, come to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us about your request.
Scott Lewis, 1518 Riley Hills Drive. The photos you see to the right of the house there, those were trailers. My son, those are gone. Yeah, where the R is there in Richmond, all that's gone, and we're getting rid of the two sheds. So we got actually a lot and a half there. They told me at one time there was supposed to be an alley, then they added on, and that just turned to property, so.
So can you elaborate on what your request is?
I want to build a garage, do a 24 by 40, actually a pole barn. I got plenty of frontage, sidage, in the back. We're keeping it short so it doesn't stick out in the neighborhood. We were thinking about going tall, but we're gonna make it same color, about the same height as the house.
Questions of the petitioner from the board?
No questions.
No questions on my part.
Thank you. With that, I'll open public hearing for BZA 10-2024. If there's anybody wishing to speak in favor or opposition. Hearing and seeing none, we'll close public hearing and hear the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. BZA 10 is the petition of Scott Lewis, owner and agent, located at 1518 Riley Hills Drive in Richmond, requesting a variance of development standards to exceed the maximum size for an accessory structure in the high-density single-family residential district. Current use is single-family residential. Zoning is high-density single-family residential, and the lot is 0.317 acres. Adjacent zoning in all directions is high-density single-family residential, and adjacent land use in all directions is single-family residential. The proposed variance would allow the petitioner to exceed the maximum size for an accessory structure on a residential lot under 1/2 of an acre of 25% of the primary structure's footprint, which would be approximately 323.5 square feet, to build a 960 square foot detached garage or pole barn, which is approximately 56.67% of the footprint of the property's primary structure. On March 27th, the public hearing was advertised in Western Wayne News. On March 27th, 21 adjacent property owners were notified about the variance and public hearing by mail. We received 3 responses.
to responses.
Oh, sorry.
Dennis Schwab, 2222 South 16th Place. I support this because everyone should be able to build what they want on their own land. Neighbors shouldn't have the last say, and neither should the city of Richmond. Second one is Edward C. Douglas, 1513 Riley Hill Drive. I support it because he needs another garage to put his cars.
Planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety. No health and safety objections were raised. Staff recommends approving the petition to allow a 960 square foot detached garage to be installed in the high-density single-family residential district based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the proposed structure must adhere to the R3 side and rear yard setback standards, and its size will not impact movement or visibility within the neighborhood. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because while similar structures in similar neighborhood settings have previously elicited concerns, it is difficult to definitively state that the area adjacent to the property will be affected in a substantially adverse manner. A similarly sized accessory structure has existed roughly 1 block north of the subject property for the past 15 years, and planning staff has no record of neighboring property owners ever issuing complaints about this structure. Additionally, the structure will still be expected to adhere to Article 5.06D of the UDO, which is intended to better integrate these types of accessory structures into the broader residential environment, stating the exterior finish and facade of all storage-based accessory structures greater than 200 square feet shall match, closely resemble, or significantly complement the materials and colors used in the primary structure. And number three, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties of the use of the property because the subject property and the adjacent property to the south consist of parts of what were originally platted as two distinct lots, making these two properties over 5,000 square feet larger than the adjacent properties along Riley Hills Drive. The larger lot, combined with the second driveway that exists on the east side of the property, make the property uniquely suited for a larger accessory structure. Strict application of the terms of the ordinance would require that the same storage space be achieved by installing multiple storage structures. And there are no written commitments, and I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Questions of the staff?
I have none.
No questions.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve BZA 10-2024, BZA 10-2024 with finding of facts.
I second it.
We have a second and a motion and a second to approve BZA 10-2024 based on the staff report and finding of facts. Call the roll, please.
Jeff Cook,
Yes.
Ann Snyder,
Yes.
Rob Tidrow.
Yes.
Motion carries. Good luck. Next on our agenda is BZA 12-2024 petition of B&B Construction requesting a variance to allow a portable asphalt plant. Is the petitioner here?
Michael Jaskell of Reith Riley Construction, 1751 West Minnesota, Indianapolis, Indiana. Our representative is running late, so I'm with a contracting firm that's making the request.
Okay, can you tell us about your petition?
Yes, we would like to put up a portable asphalt plant for the Revive I-70 job, which this is contract 1 of 3 contracts to repave and widen I-70 from the Ohio line to State Road 1. Our request is to put the plant approximately in the middle of the site to provide asphalt for either the asphalt paving option or a sub-base underneath the concrete paving option. The job does not bid till next week, so the determined type of pavement has not been let yet. We have similar placed asphalt plants like this in Marion County and Anderson. Marion County was very similar to this as in its relationship to the White River. We were about a few hundred feet from the White River floodplain on that project a few years ago. This would be the same asphalt plant. I know some of the concerns that were raised were how we would mitigate water discharge from our site. We do not use water during the manufacturing of asphalt, It's actually the opposite. We're drying the aggregates out to put liquid asphalt on them. All the on-site water that we would have discharged would be rainfall. Mitigation methods would be berms to direct it to diversion dikes to direct it to filter berms and sediment basins before it was discharged from our property, or our location to the White River, or the Whitewater River, apologize. That is the natural flow of the property, is that it goes down into the floodplain and drains. We had a similar situation at the White River in Marion County, or, I'm sorry, not Marion County, Johnson County, we actually South County line, where we mitigated it. It went into a settlement pond that then drained, overflowed into the White River in that case. All of our on-site storage of fuels and liquid asphalts are in containment. We build containment dikes around them that hold the volume of the tanks in case of spills as required by our permits. We would, obviously, as part of this, we would have to get IDEM permits for the improvements to the temporary improvements to the site, meet their requirements for drainage mitigation, water mitigation. Separately, the plant comes with a air quality permit that is also issued by IDEM that we move, as the plant moves around, we get it reissued. That is our requirements for what we can discharge through the process of making asphalt into the air. The process of making asphalt is more or less a big flame, dries the aggregates, it then mixes in a drum like a mixing bowl at your house, and comes back out. All that air we burn goes through a bag house, which filters out all the particulates down to levels that are obviously acceptable by IDEM. You go through tests with IDEM, I believe, biannually or every 2 years, it's called smoke test, to test what is coming out of the stack to make sure you're still following within guidelines. We believe to be here based off the current job. Our request is to be there through the end of '28. The job will design this year and start some minor work this year and get into full swing the next construction season. It's approximately a 3 construction season job is the way NDOT has it designed for us. That's a summary of what we have planned for the site.
Questions of the petitioner?
I have a question in general. So that is a floodplain?
Running along the east side of the property, yeah.
That's my concern there. But
I believe the part we're sitting is not the floodplain.
The part that you're sitting in?
The part we plan to sit in with the plan is not in the floodplain,
Correct. It's to the east of the facility, yes.
where the pond is.
And where would the exit and entrance to that plant be?
There's an existing easement that has a dedicated left turn lane. It's across the Industries Road from Hill's entrance.
Is that the one that has the gate on it that's chained? Is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How far back from the road is that?
So,
I have another question.
yeah, go ahead.
Is it typical to plan this before it's even gone out to bid or approved for bid for the whole job, or is this?
Yes, we typically request these beforehand because it, depending on where we are, affects all of our trucking rates
Okay.
for getting to the job, for hauling the mix to the job and bringing the white rock, obviously, to the plant.
Good, thank you.
So why is this location desirable for this plant?
It's at the west end of what the project will be, and one of the desirable we liked about it was we're sitting down from the road. We're probably, the site we plan to develop is probably about 10 feet lower than Industries. There's 2 rows of trees between us and Industries Road. There's also a fairly large amount of trees between us and the north-south road union, I believe. It puts us back away from everybody else where, we're hidden. We're not causing a bunch of, we're not an eyesore for while we're sitting there if we're sitting right up against the road.
So how will your trucks come and go from the plant with raw material and then finished product to the road?
We'll go down Industries to 35 for the majority of it. Getting on at 35 and then headed back into the job. I mean, there's, I believe that's substantially less traffic and signals than going up 27 to the interstate.
I've seen some of these plants that are just right next to the interstate, you know,
Yes.
right? Like, you know, up on 65, you know, last couple of years, but even on 70, there's one towards Indianapolis, but it seems like they're right there on the shoulder, you know, basically, and they just have a cutout and they can just get on, you know, and off, so, but,
The phasing of the job, direct access to the interstate would only work for one of the 6 phases of the contract. I mean, otherwise you'd have to cross interstate or turn out into live traffic, which is not normally allowable by the state of Indiana. And we believe it's safer to get onto a road and use an interchange to access if you're going into live traffic. If you're going into closed construction, obviously, it's,
yeah. I've seen some set up right there at the interchange too, you know.
yeah.
So,
We did look at all the interchanges.
Frankfurt.
They're not very conducive because of grades to sitting. An asphalt plant needs a little bit more area than a concrete plant too. So I mean, like, you know, a lot of other people, you know, there's other concrete plants and we do that too, but less materials, less different types of product, you don't need quite as big of an area.
Can you go back, Dustin, to their proposed site picture that you had?
To lose it here, I'm not sure. I had it pulled up and the presentation seems to have gone blank. Here we go.
This is the guy.
Looking at the grade lines, that's not a very, I guess, probably the flattest part of that whole property, but there's still a lot of elevation that falls back in down towards the river, from what I'm seeing there. Pretty substantial. How big will your berms be for containments, for runoff and everything else to protect the watersheds?
Well, we'll have to strip the site, so we're gonna generate materials to make berms anyways, probably in the 3 to 4 foot tall range. It's hard to see, there's a east-west tree line that, and then it comes down to the site we're talking about, there's a little bit of a drainage creek, or drainage ditch there. And then there is a eastern tree line that is about where it starts to fall off again. We were gonna try to sit in between those two. Those two areas are pretty relatively level at this point in time for construction level. We'd have to do some grading, but part of the stripping would be additional berms.
I have another question. Are there any other sites that you reviewed or analyzed? That would
We also have a
back up?
meeting with the county tomorrow at about a site out near State Road 1 and 70. That is actually right off the interchange.
Right, yeah.
So how many trucks a day, at peak production, how many trucks are gonna run in and out of there during the project?
About, you're probably looking at 10 to 12 asphalt trucks and probably 10 to 12 trucks bringing raw materials in. And then we're looking at 4 to 5 liquid tankers bringing in the liquid asphalt part.
Is this planned to be like all daytime hour work, or is it a 24/7 operation, or?
It probably will not be 24/7, but 24/6, so Monday through Saturday, 24 hours a day during the high production, not all year long, but during the high production sections of the job, we would request to run 24 hours.
I'm just concerned that when you're coming from, when I sat by the gate that's fenced, because I couldn't really see in much to the property, you get to that stop sign where Hill's on the left and your property's on the right. I don't know which way I'm facing, but there's a little house on the corner, and I know it's already been hit twice by a trucker not making that turn. So I'm just wondering, have you estimated? Like, I just can't see trucks in and out, and there's a berm that they'd have to cross that separates your property, like, there's 2 lanes going each way and that. I just don't know access-wise, like, how you're gonna get in and out of that property, making it really clear for me.
They're gonna go westbound every time.
You're gonna go west every time? Okay,
And then there is a dedicated left turn into that property, that drive, and we would extend that.
Okay.
So that easement currently goes all the way through the property on the corner.
okay,
We would extend that easement and then turn into our property so that the trucks would be more lined up
okay.
they'd be more perpendicular coming onto the Industries Road.
On industry, okay.
Where's your raw material coming from?
Our raw material is going to come from Barrett Materials, possibly IMI Materials, and possibly Martin Marietta in Ohio. It's a rather large job. We're trying to obviously buy as much local as local can supply, but
So would their route be I-70 to 35 southbound and then in from traveling east and then across the road? Or are they gonna come down Chester Boulevard or?
I have not specifically talked to them about what their haul route would be. But I can't guarantee one way or the other. I've not specifically had that conversation.
Trucks just dump trucks or semi-dumps or?
So some of the material is not made locally. That may be semi-dump trucks. And then we would have semi-liquid tankers also.
What's the mitigation for if you have a spillage of that liquid tanker right there by the river? I mean,
The liquid tanker unloads into an area that is contained. So it would contain in there, and once liquid asphalt cools, you can, dig it back out, it comes like putty, but it's in a containment area. All the liquid transfer is done in containment areas.
Any further questions to the petitioner?
No, I don't have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
That's the guy that we were waiting for.
Yeah,
This is the agent. Is it all right if he speaks?
absolutely, yeah.
Kevin,
For the record, my name is Kevin Buckheit. I'm a planner with the law firm Creed DeVault in their Carmel, Indiana office. And
State your address, please.
12800 North Meridian Street, Suite 300, Carmel, 46032. I heartily beg the pardon of this body and everybody in attendance tonight for my lateness. I've got lots of reasons, but no good excuses, and I apologize for that. I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about the findings of fact because I know they're important to any decision that you make. Mr. Purvis found in our favor generally on 2 of the 3 findings of fact. I'd like to address the other 3 just for a little bit here. Number 1 is talking about the not being injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. At the time that his report was written, he didn't have full information. And the essence of this is that everything operationally and procedurally on this site for this operator is going to be regulated by the state of Indiana. From an environmental standpoint, there are things that we must do to protect the environment, and we are committed to doing that. I think that kind of goes toward the protection of the general welfare of the community than with that oversight by the state. Number 3 is talking about something peculiar to the property, and there is some peculiarity to the property in that it has extreme elevation changes that many of the other flat industrial sites in this general area and in other areas that are zoned for industrial uses do not have. If you go west to east on the property, it rises and then it falls considerably quickly down to the river before on the other side of the river, the other property rises again. It is not flat. large-scale industry requires flatness. The comprehensive plan and the current zoning support industrial uses, albeit through zoning, not this particular use. That's why we're here before you. But this variance will allow for a temporary productive use of the site while the community awaits that desired end user that might mirror what's happening at Hills across the street. And then there's also dual site zoning on this property. The eastern third or so of the property is zoned for parks and recreation, and the rest of it is zoned for industrial. I don't think many other parcels in the area have the dual competing zoning districts there. Finding 4 is regarding unnecessary hardship. If the variance is not granted, we contend that there is hardship on this. No other large-scale users like Hills has expressed an interest in the property. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be a long time coming for any kind of development to build out the policies of your comprehensive plan and the goals through your zoning. As I said before, industrial users require flat land. Other potential users permitted in the I-1 district are not locating here, I think, because of that topography. The owner's been unable to attract any other large-scale end users. Petitioner will not be able to establish their operations on the site in support of the interstate project if the variance is not granted. Other sites not located this close to the operations may cause an increase in the project costs, and unnecessary hardship is spread over the owner, the operator, the state, and the community if we aren't able to service the Revive I-70 project from this location. I have other comments, but I'll wait until we hear from others and then maybe come back during a rebuttal. If you have any questions.
Questions to the agent?
I have a question, couple questions. Will there be odor, from the asphalt? How that kind of chokes you sometimes?
It won't be odor-free, but part of the bag house process is scrubbing the particles out of the material, and then that is then pulsed back off the bags. Actually, it's actually put back into the mix as part of the making of the mix.
Okay. So the answer is no? No odor?
No, there will be some type of odor. It
Okay.
won't be completely odor-free.
Okay.
But I believe where we're sitting in the property down there, I believe by the time it leaves our property, it should not be noticeable.
Okay.
One other point on that note. I did a quick measurement on Beacon GIS this afternoon, and north to south, the actual location of operations is going to be at least 400 feet from the north and south property lines, and much farther than that from the east and west property lines. And then the location for the operations sits down in that bowl. So as was mentioned here, there's going to be a whole lot of dissipation as it leaves the site before it really gets off-site. Doesn't mean you're not going to smell it, but it's going to be very much dissipated.
Okay, thank you. Also, go ahead.
I used it as an example earlier, but our site on the previous job that sat near the White River, the other side of the river was similar, where we got into some more residential, and we went through that job and received no complaints from any of the residents on the opposite side of the river, which was also east of us on that project.
Okay, thank you.
So I have kind of a important question, I think, that I probably should ask you earlier, but I just thought of it. If this petition passes and you guys are done at the end of 28, well, what's your mitigation to return the site back to what it was, or you just pick up and leave?
The owners requested that we leave it more or less a flat gravel lot. We would remove all of our plant materials, all of our foundations, and leave, it's existing more or less, the area we're sitting in is a flat dirt lot now. We would leave it a flat aggregate lot, draining, but flat aggregate lot.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have another question. You had mentioned on the finding of fact number 1 that this is all regulated by the state of Indiana. And Do you have those? Did you said he received that, or he had?
He did, I don't know that Mr. Purvis had that information
Okay.
in front of him at the time, but there are state regulations that I don't have in front of me either, but I understand there are permit requirements, there are review and oversight requirements by IDNR and/or IDEM that will really govern and take care of the larger air, land, water pollution concerns from the community.
Sure. Okay. My concern is just that it's in a floodplain, you know, and those, you know,
I don't,
it's close to it's near a floodplain, but it's also near the river, you know, so. You made a point about, well, if you're not there, no one else will, you know, be there. There has been some, you know, improvements made along that area the last few years, so. And before, there was not even a road through there until they cut it, you know, when they started expanding, but. All right, thank you.
With that, we'll open up public hearing for anybody in favor of this petition. There's no one wishing to speak in favor. We'll now open up public hearing for anyone that wishes to speak in opposition.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Brent Wolf. I'm part owner in the property at 2762 Union Pike. And not as much as more of a concern and fact-finding is what we're here for. We're concerned about the truck traffic that has grown in the last 14, 15 years that we've owned this property in that area. And I think this would really accelerate that. Most of that material will come from Barrett, will come down Union Pike. Most of the drivers in that area we spoke with, that's the route they take. And I know it's going to create an impact on our roads, on how much weight's been traveled on there compared to the residential traffic that normally travels that road. And also, we're concerned about the smell and what it can do on, is it going to degrade our value of our properties out there? You know, in the next 5 to 6 years, what if somebody wanted to sell something and nobody wants to buy it because of the odors and things like that? I mean, it may not come fruition on this, but we want to make sure that our concerns are addressed and worried about the speeds and also the weight and the travel on the roads and out there. Any questions from anybody or anything?
I don't have any questions.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Walt Chittister, 2030 Chester Boulevard, Richmond. I had filed earlier today with the office an objection to the project. It's not so much an objection to the project as it is to this board voting on this use of variance application today. The use of variance application was signed, and I take it filed, on March 18th of this year. And the rules that the advisory board has is that these must be 28 days prior to a hearing. And this is clearly not within that 28 days. The board could easily just continue this until its next month's hearing. The problem is, no matter how well-intentioned, it's very apparent both on the first page where I think in that opening paragraph, there's a number, about 4 paragraphs numbered. There's one, I think it's numbered 4, that said this is to be submitted 28 days prior to the hearing in front of the board. And on the last page where the signature is, where it says certification, there are 2 paragraphs. The last paragraph before the signature and dating, I think it's on page 5, so the first paragraph then reads that I further understand that this completed application must be filed and fees paid at least 28 days prior to the next scheduled Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. And that's on March 18th. And somebody had worse handwriting than I did. I have no idea who they are. And this clearly is not within that time frame. And the problem is, this is not, I want to say, harmless error, because if the board proceeds, the board risks opening itself up to every other person that comes in front of this board to say, hey, look, I meant well, I just didn't get this filed in time, and we've got to get this out tomorrow. And once you do that, you're opening the floodgates to everybody doing that. And I think it is a wrong message to send. So it's not so much about the substance of this, but a procedural one that I urge you to take into consideration and not vote on this this evening.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Not to you, but I would like to address council and
So Mr. Chittister is correct. I went back and double checked. It looks like this was filed within 23 days, which is not in accordance with the 28-day. And that is it's not only per the application, it's per the UDO 9.18, D as in dog, number 3. So it does state that it shall be within that 28-day period. So as far as a harmless error, I cannot technically speculate what a judge might or might not do. I guess I am speculating and guessing that a judge would probably remand this back to this board so that the petition could be held after a 28-day time lapse. So technically, this board could make a note of this objection for the record, and that would be noted for any judge for any future appeal of this matter. The board could arguably set a precedent. I don't know if it wants to do that, and perhaps there's some background information that I don't know from the Department of Infrastructure and Development on why we didn't catch this, and I'll be the first to admit that I also didn't happen to catch it. I read the packet today and discovered that Mr. Chittister was right. It is within the 23 days, but not within the 28-day time period. So do you want to say anything? And
Yeah, I communicated with the agent that we would be willing to accept this after the deadline. Truthfully, I was not aware that this 28-day period was in the UDO. I know that there was a time, that we need to get our legal ads out, that we need to get our adjacent property letters out, and I always thought that the 28-day period was an internal process that we just used so we could do all of that. So I accepted the application, not realizing that we need to adhere to this 28-day period.
Just put it on.
And Mr. President, we even state that the filing deadline was March 13th, 2024. So
correct.
Yeah.
we state that, so.
Right, and again, I thought that was just, that was a date that we usually use for our department's convenience, and that there was a little wiggle room there typically, is how I had interpreted that previously.
And I would note that because the code actually says 28 days prior to the public meeting at which it is first to be considered, there's maybe some leeway in that language, first to be considered. Well, if it's not decided today and it is tabled, then it's being considered without coming back for a second review. So technically, this board could table it, and it would possibly, I don't know what a judge would do, but possibly tack that on or toll that time period so that it's had an opportunity to be republished and reopened for another public hearing for additional consideration.
I think we should just put a motion forward and just table it for.
I, for one, would not want to set a precedence to open up whatever could happen in the future. So based on Ann's comment, some of Rob's comments, if the board would like to make a motion to table this until next month's hearing, when we will have a clear delineation of more than 28 days, I would entertain that motion.
I'll put forth a motion that we table this agenda item BZA 12/2024 until the May, I don't know the date right off, whatever the
May 8th.
May 8th, 2024 meeting.
Can I ask a question? And in that, it would open up, we could open up for public comment, again, right?
I think there are probably other people in the audience who want to speak tonight. So that's going to be my recommendation, because I think a court, if this were to go to an appeal, I think a court would probably kick it back and say maybe do it over. But if we possibly toll that deadline, that might assist in a future judge's, or a judge's future determination.
Can we listen to the people who are already here this evening? Is that what you're saying? I guess I'm not clear what you're,
So if I can interpret for you, Kim, what I think we could do is hold your motion, continue with public hearing, and then if at that point in time, when we close public hearing and hear the staff report, we could make that motion at that point in time, or we could make a different motion to move forward, knowing that we are somewhat at risk to hear this case again if it goes to a court.
I'll defer to your counsel on my response, but I don't think you want to close the public hearing.
Correct.
You'd have to leave that open.
Correct. That would have to be reopened in May.
So
It wouldn't even be reopened yet.
I agree.
It's continued because you're not closing the public hearing, you're having a second meeting.
I would recommend to staff that they republish, possibly even resend the notices to the adjacent neighbors. Basically like a do-over.
Yeah.
So we would have to hear that motion before public hearing is closed. Is that what you're recommending?
Well, I think Ann's question, it circles back to Ann's question of, are we letting the people who are here speak tonight? And then there would be a second opening of a public hearing, and anybody who wanted to reiterate what they've already gave evidence to, or any new speakers, potentially, that would be open for public hearing again. And I know that sometimes we can reconvene a meeting without closing a meeting. We can reconvene the meeting to May 8th. That's a little bit, under open door law, that's a little bit of a different situation when you want to do that and when you don't want to do that. But even that might be a good recommendation, where we don't adjourn the meeting, we simply reconvene it until May 8th. And then definitely keep public hearing open, don't close public hearing, and don't make a motion on the disposition of the petition.
okay.
So we wouldn't be able to hear staff report. So we'd listen to.
You could
public
hear
comment.
staff report if you wanted to without closing public hearing.
But would there be a potential of changing the staff report between now and then based on any new information that you could receive between that time?
I mean, I'm willing to change the staff report if we receive new information between now and then.
Sometimes the staff report even changes between, Thursday and Friday, or whenever,
Sure,
so.
yeah.
Of new,
And,
so.
and you guys know from experience, sometimes it comes up during a meeting that there's new information, which requires even the on-the-spot developing of new written commitments. So,
Right.
these are tools and guidelines and recommendations at your disposal, but ultimately, yeah, there are some flexibilities within the code that we can look at. So was there a second to the
There
motion?
was not a second.
Okay.
No, I just wanted, my question was, can we keep this, can we keep the public comment open? And anybody that speaks today can speak again, or anybody new to the table can.
So without taking a vote, is there perhaps a poll or a consensus on what you would want to do as far as having more public speakers come forward?
I'm fine hearing what people are here. If people came tonight and that want to speak, I'm fine with that.
Would that bother you as far as being viewed as setting a precedent?
I think we've done that in the past on some other hearings where we left the public comment open and then tabled. The ones that I'm thinking of were based on the hour of the day when we used to meet later in the evening and we were getting close to midnight. So that would be where my desire would be is we continue public hearing tonight. If there is then, at the end of public hearing, everybody's had their chance to speak. If we want to, at that point, then make a motion to table and continue this, we would end at that point. That's where my feelings are we should go.
End what? Public comment?
Yeah, and so
For
finish public comment tonight. If there's if we want then to entertain a motion to table till the next meeting on May the 8th, we would do that at the end of public comment before staff report and then reconvene on May the 8th.
Okay, do you want to hear the staff report tonight?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think, yeah.
We have the opportunity to read it and study it a little bit more, and
Okay.
then if there is an amendment to that, everybody hears it fresh after the closing of public comments on May the 8th.
And you're okay with not adjourning the meeting, just reconvening it until May 8th?
So I got a procedural question.
Sure.
So we have two open board members that are not here tonight. Would they have to recuse for the first part of that since, or
So-
would they be eligible for the rest of the meeting if there's 2 or 3 other petitions? Because
This-
it's a continuance.
This happens occasionally with Plan Commission and even Common Council. And sometimes what those counselors will do is they will watch the hearing or listen to the hearing and watch it on WCTV or watch it on YouTube. That way they can sort of be up to speed. And then they have the information that you all have. They have the public speaking concerns. They have the written information, they have the documentation, they have access to what was shown on the screen. They're more than welcome to contact Dustin and Joanne for any questions, mostly procedural. But I think the city has already established a precedent of letting the 2 board members who are not here, as long as they sort of get caught up and then come to the meeting with a
Knowledge base?
fundamental understanding of what the petition is about, then they don't, I don't think that's, unless there's an objection, I don't think that's a problem legally.
The way I take it is, this shouldn't even come to the meeting today, really, based on the time. So, and would there be a chance that a judge would say, okay, everything that was said during that meeting that you had that was really premature is null and void?
If there's an objection to that effect, I could mostly see a judge remanding it back. So, again, I can't predict what a judge is going to do. I can guess. A lot of times in zoning types of cases, plan commission types of cases, I think I even saw a case today that I sent to Dustin on a Noblesville case where the state Supreme Court remanded it back to the Noblesville city. So it does happen. And again, this might correct it. Because of this inadvertent oversight, I don't know how a judge is going to treat that without doing further research and seeing if there's other case law out there that would dictate that.
Thoughts?
Good. to hear what people have to say too.
Is there anything besides a motion and a table where it's just,
I think you might check with Kim, because that word table, you don't want that
right?
in anywhere tonight. Reconvene, I think, is
Reconvene or-
proper.
Well, tabling is just tabling
The motion,
the petition.
Petition, yeah.
So the petition is being held. I don't want them to adjourn the meeting, I want them to reconvene the meeting,
And specifically not close the public session, yeah.
and specifically not close the public hearing.
and you want us to include that in the motion?
It's,
It could be so I'm not sure if I got the consensus. Do you want to continue with the people here tonight for public hearing?
Yes.
I do, yeah.
And then you want to table the public hearing. So we're not closing public hearing. And then hold off on staff report, come back, reconvene, and then come back on May 8th.
Correct.
So procedurally, I think then, unless there's any questions for Mr. Chittister, then we would just move on to the next speaker. But again, yeah, the tabling is just tabling the petition.
I think the key is keeping the public hearing thing open, and
It's definitely not going to be closed.
you're on your own about tabling the petition, so.
Judge could get on me for that, but
So if at the conclusion of the speakers that are here tonight, if the motion was to move this to the next meeting and reconvene at the point we stop at, and not use the word table or whatever, somehow we got to figure out what's the right words to
That's-
end the meeting.
that's a safe approach. I make a motion to reconvene on May 8th. And as long as you don't say, you're closing public hearing, then I think we should be okay.
does that have to be a motion, or can it come from point of order that
It could be a point of order.
way it's, yeah. So I don't think we want to make a motion.
I mean, under the open door law, you don't even have to formally close a meeting. You can just get up and walk out. I found that in open door law. I believe it was case law or PAC opinion. So,
Those can be overruled too.
Yeah.
yes, sir, they
We've seen that
can.
happen at the state level.
Let's get him sent down.
All right,
Is that all you have, Mr. Chittister? Thank you.
thanks.
With that, we will continue the public comment section of anybody else that wishes to speak.
Yeah, my name's Mark McIntosh. I live at 2747 Union Pike. And me and the wife's concern is the smells from the asphalt plant, the dust, the noise from the plant, because we live just north where they're wanting to put this plant. So we're gonna have to deal with all the dust, the noise, the dump trucks and coming in and out and the tailgate slamming. I know because I drive a dump truck, so I know all about the asphalt plants, and I know how they smell. I know about the dust, and the truck traffic. And everybody I've talked to, as far as that lives in that area, has the same concerns.
Any questions?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Yes, my name's Marty Horton. I live at 2711 Union Pike. And my
Thank you for your
property
service,
puts
sir.
right up on the very north side of this proposed deal. My concern is truck traffic in the last few years has increased on Union Pike. crazy. Not just dump trucks, semis, plus everybody thinks it's a racetrack out there. Dust, dirt, smell is one of my main concerns. And what will it do to my value of my property? Because I know part of the runoff creek that goes down to that bottom comes on the north side of my house, down through the bottom and back part of my property. I have 1 acre and 7/10 there. That's basically all I have to say about it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
You can say things like, set a reminder.
Responded in writing, I was under the impression it was going to be read tonight. Incorrect.
If we were reading the staff report tonight, there's a section in there where it would be read. So it won't be read tonight, but it will be read into the record.
Okay, well, just real quick, then the two items of our main concern were.
If you would, sir, state your name.
I'm sorry,
and
Dan
address.
Dunham, I'm the plant controller at Hills Pet Nutrition.
Thank you.
So our two main concerns are the traffic associated with it. That driveway that they've talked about is exactly opposite from our driveway. We have around, I'd say, 30 trucks a day, full-size semi-trucks in and out of that, and it goes both ways across, whether turning left or right into our driveway. And then our other concern, of course, is the dust. We are a food-grade manufacturing facility, subject to FDA regulation, and we have tons of bag houses as well. We know they fail, and we don't want that asphalt. We use external air coming into our manufacturing facility as part of our manufacturing process, and that's our other concern is we don't want the risk of that dust coming into our food grade facility. That's really, I think, the bulk of our written response. Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? With that, we're going to continue this hearing on May the 8th, leaving public comment open. And we will reconvene at 5:30, and this will be first on the docket at 5:30 on May the 8th. Thank you all for attending.